Chapter 3. The Baker neighborhood of Denver, with its rich history, provided a solace to a wide array of people from different backgrounds. This diversity provided housing options for a broad category of persons, ranging from working-class persons to hipsters. It had the unique advantage of being close to most parts of the metropolis. The mixed industrial, commercial and residential property range also helped to keep low-income earners interested in living in the area. Jerry Wilson dreaded the occasional drive from the Brighton area, past the station in the city center to visit Marty. All the same, it was almost always a necessary visit. Since Augusta left with the children, Sergeant Wilson has become a workaholic, putting his job in place of regular family life. The divorce was messy. The lawyer, inexperienced. The settlements, terrible. He was literally going to spend all his life paying alimony and child support. All he wanted was to lock it all away in the abyss of the deeper side of his mind, where his memory would never recall those episodes. The less he thought about it, the better. Alcoholism was a luxury. A way to flee the world. Some way, somehow, offenders and suspects had to pay for it all. On the brighter side, he has been able to focus on his business administration degree. Courses like supply chain management and operations management seem to have paid him off already. The fascinating lectures with a professor who had been involved in consulting has been enormous. He had the magical ability to break down every concept in lean management to the finest details that his students could apply it to their lives with ease. Jerry Wilson was surprised at how much he had organized his life after staying out for a year to fix his emotional wounds. However, on his return, the final year seemed exciting and it felt like everything was coming together. All he needed was to put himself in order and get a big break in business. Living as a single man had not been all bad though. Jerry Wilson was always ahead of his productivity requirements, what everyone around called the arrest quotas. He was almost always ahead of his suspects, and Marty has been more than handy. Marty always had the information and data needed to crack each case. Marty brought the facts, Wilson presented the intuition. Trips to Baker Historic District always paid off. So far, that has been Jerry Wilson's don't look back formula. With Augusta and the kids out of the state, Jerry felt he was free and could always pursue his dreams. All the limits he had were now behind him. He took up the most daring cases and was always proactive. Except for a few electrically charged encounters with Mia, who she drove through the city as a crime reporter a couple of years earlier. Since then, they had remained friends, and after an encounter in recent times, the conversation had become intense. Sergeant Wilson always brushed off any rumors. He had to, after all. There was always that station in life joke that the boys in the station cracked. Nothing could stand in his way of focusing and building a strong career, gaining his business administration degree and see what could happen next. Mia's current stature as a successful reporter and entrepreneur with postgraduate journalistic credentials should not be part of his worries. He had to focus and he had to get to his destination, immediately, in the short term and in the long term. On that account, Wilson's thought shifted to the content of the meeting with Marty as he drove through central Denver to get to the other side. He needed to know all there was about the subject, and there was the need for a close evaluation of his background for future checks to be taken on him. After all, these tech jobs have come to make everyone look poor and useless. He drove through the gloomy spring evening, which reminded everyone that winter has overstayed its welcome. Finally, Wilson's brown classic Chevrolet salon car drove into the parking space of the Gridlock Bar, on the outskirts of Baker's Historic Center. The anonymity he enjoyed in this part of the city was good enough. The bar employed a bunch of illegals, but he always hushed it with Marty, and they were able to have a drink as two regular guys and talk about sensitive matters, away from the inquisitive ears of intruders. As always, Marty sat with his old golf cap and long brown coat. He had a cup of coffee before him and a newspaper. Traditional in outlook and outdated in appearance. Although he was just 27, no one could guess he was a decade within his age range. Marty approached the world of computers with the same level of precision and accuracy as an old man in his 70s. "Hi Marty." He looked over, and responded with little emotion. "What is in the news?" The routine curtain raiser came and Marty adjusted his posture on his seat to give his superior a brief account of what is going on in the world of finance, Washington and the Square State. These were submissions that came with figures, accurate to the last decimal point. Marty chose to serve in the force in order to self-educate himself. He read about some of the greatest and most successful people who did not go to the university, but chose to do courses that ensured their personal development. Right after high school, Marty had enrolled in several distance learning programs and gained so much knowledge from the old-fashioned Friedman brand of economics to British law and accounting. Marty believed the old ways worked, and the best persons charted an unusual path. His quest for a place in an intelligence unit in the military was halted when he failed an eye test. He therefore opted for a place in the data analysis unit of the local police force. So far, it has been exciting and educative. After sitting through what sounded like a mini lecture on the benefits of President Trump's abridged tax plan and a new immigration plan, Wilson got closer to the topic of his interest. Marty commenced discussions about the rising value of the US dollar. Wilson wanted some kind of subtlety in the entire process. He wanted to go through all the protocols before making his move. The moment came. And Sergeant Wilson finally dropped his question. "So, what did you find about our subject?" Marty took a deep breath and remarked, "Since you sat through all the discussions, I am sure you are really interested in this individual." "No, not really," but Sergeant Wilson stammered slightly when he was caught off guard by his subordinate. "Well, I just hope this does not add up to the list of police brutalities against the Black American community," Marty remarked rather sarcastically. "I don't think that is the objective here, Marty." "I hope so," Marty admonished. "This guy has the money to face a police department like ours, so better beware." "I sure would." Sergeant Wilson found his heart beating faster and he listened more intensely. "His full name is Obina Parker Chibuzer." "What?" Sergeant Wilson interrupted. "Where is that name from?" "It is African." "From Nigeria," Marty replied. "Nigeria?" Sergeant Wilson said and entered a bit of a reverie. "I read somewhere that Nigeria is where all most of the Negroes in America came from. In Jewish slave ships." "No, that is totally wrong," Marty said, sounding a bit surprised. "Nigeria is a modern country in Africa. It was named Nigeria around 1901 by the wife of the British governor. It has nothing to do with the N-word. So how did all these black people come here in all the Jewish-owned slave ships?" Sergeant Wilson asked. "That is all wrong. False KKK propaganda," Marty refuted. "African Americans are a distinct ethnic group. And they are called that because their ancestors were taken from different parts of Africa. Statistically, many of them might be from Nigeria, simply because Nigeria has the highest population of black people in the world. But most African Americans are from different parts of Africa and they are typically from different origins and have mixed significantly. So the Nigerian Negro claim is just a myth, constructed in recent times." "Okay, Marty. I have to bow to your superior knowledge on this." Sergeant Wilson conceded and gave leave for the conversation to proceed. "So, Obi Parker, as he is called in most records, has an influential grandfather who left what is now eastern Nigeria right after World War II ended. He lived in Britain, gained good qualifications in many British universities and gained British citizenship. He supported the Nigerian independence from Britain and was later made Nigerian ambassador to the United States where he met his wife, from an elite African American family and married her and had Obi's father and several other children. Obi's father trained as a medical doctor in an Ivy League university and he raised him to become a tech genius. They always talk of white privilege. This guy's father is not only immigrant, but also privileged." Sergeant Wilson interrupted. "Yes, if you look at it that way. But Obi Parker's mother's side did not get it all rosy. They were an African American couple that came up north in the Great Migration and worked really hard to achieve a status that allowed them to raise a daughter who went on to become a college professor," Marty stated. "All these immigrants and minorities, crying of racism, come here to make money and disrespect us." "Wrong again." Marty, clearly enjoying his lead role in the conversation, retorted. "Obi is 9th-generation American on his mother's side. And 10th-generation American on his paternal grandmother's side. He is 3rd-generation American from his father's side, because his grandfather gained American citizenship. So think about it." "Whatever." Sergeant Wilson chipped in. "What makes the guy so rich in our state?" "Good question," Marty said, like a student who has spotted an exam question he had prepared for. "Obi Parker is working on a major software as a service project. This is a process through which companies like Google and Microsoft set up major projects and make millions of dollars from them. Obi's project is really lucrative and he is tipped by some insiders to present the next big thing to the world." Sergeant Wilson listened intently. And knew he had to take a second look at this guy. There could be a lot up for grabs.